Hello and welcome to the Cruising Aboard Chicory series. This week I decided to add to this series because there's something that I've wanted to talk about for quite some time. And that is, when chicory is out and about, we find it quite often that sailboats and sport fishermen believe they have right of way because of their misinterpretation of the navigation rules. And so I'm going to use this opportunity to explain the navigation rules around who has right-of-way, who is the stand-on vessel, and who is the giveaway vessel. And I think it's very important that even if you're not a captain, that you know these rules. And so I'm going to cover them relatively quickly. I'm going to cover them quickly in slide form so that you can slow down and watch it over and over again. I realize when you go through the first time it's going to be very fast, but go ahead and watch the video multiple times and I think it'll be very helpful. I'm going to use a combination of mnemonics and visual cues to help you remember many of these rules, and I hope this helps. We're going to start with this image. Look at this image and remember this reel, this new beautiful reel. It's important because new reels catch fish, so purchase some. Now say this along with me again. I know it's corny, but go ahead. New reels catch fish, so purchase some. I'm going to remove all but the first letter and let's see if you can remember it again. New reels catch fish, so purchase some. But now that we have this memorized and we have these first letters, we can use this as our mnemonic for remembering Rule 18, which is the responsibility between vessels. This is essentially who has right-of-way, starting at the top. The vessel at the top of the pecking order is a vessel not under command. After not under command comes restricted inability to maneuver. After restricted inability to maneuver, there is constrained by draft. I have an asterisk there because that is for international rules only and does not apply to the inland rules. After constrained by draft, there is fishing vessels engaged in work. After fishing vessels engaged in work is sailing vessels under sail power only. If a sail vessel has their sails up but is running their engine, they are a power vessel. After sailing vessels under sail power only, there are power vessels, and this includes everything that is power driven. And the vessel that must give way to every other vessel are seaplanes in the water. So now we know that new reels catch fish, so purchase some, helps us remember not under command, restricted inability to maneuver, constrained by draft, fishing vessels engaged in work, sailing vessels under sail power only, power-driven vessels, and seaplanes in the water. The next thing is, well, how do you identify these particular vessels? Well, that's done with lights and day shapes, and so we're going to review that now, starting at the top with not under command. The vessel pictured is not under command, and you know that as you approach this vessel because it has two masthead lights that are red in a vertical line. If this was during the day, there would be two spherical day shapes presented. Now, one of the things you'll learn throughout this process is that most of the time, and this is important, most of the time, red lights equal spheres, and so that helps you remember the difference. So not under command is two red lights in a vertical line or two balls in a vertical line. And the mnemonic to remember this is red, red, captains in the head. Now you can see there's a cadence to that. Red, red, captains in the head, and that helps you remember. The red, red obviously is telling you about the two red mast lights. And the captains in the head is the memory tool to remember that the vessel is not under command. So not under command is two red lights. Red, red, captains in the head. Next on our list is restricted inability of maneuver. In addition to the normal running lights you'd see on a power-driven vessel, there is a vertical masthead light with red, white, red in a vertical line. And that tells you that this vessel is restricted in its ability to maneuver. If it was day shapes, you remember from the not under command that spheres typically mean red, and you can see how that aligns in this one as well. And now we're learning a new one where diamonds usually, that's important, usually mean white. So you can see the day shape is sphere, diamond, sphere, or red, white, red. Once again, the mnemonic for this is red while restricted. And obviously what's going on here is red is the top light, while represents white, and restricted once again represents red. So red while restricted helps you remember that it's restricted in its ability to maneuver, and the lights are red, white, red. And once again, you can discern from memory, if knowing red, white, red, that it's going to be sphere or ball, diamond, ball. The next one we're going to discuss is constrained by draft, and once again it has the asterisk reminding you that this applies to international rules only, and if you are following inland rules because you're on an inland lake or waterway, that constrained by draft is not an applicable rule. So you'll notice that in addition to the normal running lights, and this particular vessel being shown here is more than 50 meters long, so it's showing two white masthead lights to identify itself as being more than 50 meters. So you have to kind of ignore those and just pay attention to the 3 red lights in a vertical line. So using our mnemonic again, we have rudder rubbing rocks. So that once again reminds you that we're talking about constrained by draft. Rudder rubbing rocks is pretty intuitive there, and the 3 R's stand for the 3 red lights. Now this is a great example of some of the rules that are kind of screwy, and you'll notice that it's a cylinder is the day shape, as opposed to what you would normally intuitively believe should be 3 spheres or 3 balls. That's a different rule for 3 balls, and so this is one of the departures that's kind of screwy, but you can remember it partially because it's an international rule, and so just remember that it's a cylinder and then 3 red lights. The next vessel in line is fishing vessels engaged in work. Now there's actually 2 different sets of ways of identifying a fishing vessel engaged in work, and that depends on the work they are doing. So the first thing that we're going to show you here is that there is a green and white light, in addition to their normal vessel running lights. And our mnemonic helps us remind us what that green over white means, because green over white, trawling tonight. Once again, it has that cadence that we're getting used to. It's kind of like a rhyme with a cadence. Green over white, trawling tonight. So green over white represents a trawling vessel, towing a trawl, and it's engaged in work. Now you'll notice that the day shapes are 2 cones facing each other, so the apex of the cones are facing each other in the center. This is the day shape for a fishing vessel. Now, if you don't see these day shapes or these lights, it is not a fishing vessel engaged in work. So if you see a sports fisherman and they have some rods in the water, that doesn't count as a fishing vessel engaged in work. They are just a power-driven vessel. The next fishing vessel engaged in work is identified by a red light over a white light. And once again, the mnemonic helps us remember what kind of vessel it is. Red over white, fishing tonight. Once again, there's that cadence. Red over white, fishing tonight. So this represents all other fishing vessels that are not dragging a trawl net. And so you can see that this is a little bit more comprehensive, and you can see that the day shape is the same, except there's an additional day shape where there's an outlying gear extending more than 150 meters horizontally from the vessel. All around white light or cone with an apex upward is directing towards the gear. So that's just an important thing. Obviously, if you're at night and you see this, you don't want to pass next to that vessel. Next on our list is the sailing vessels we spoke about. This is supposed to be under sail power, and so they are identified because they do not have a white masthead light facing forward. A power-driven vessel has a white masthead light. So if a sailboat is sailing, it should be displaying one of these three sets of lights, and if it was under power, it should have a masthead light in addition. There are other rules on why there are three different ways that lights can be displayed for sailboats, but I'll get that to a second video if you guys are interested. But let's go just with the mnemonic. Only the far right one changes convention over a normal sort of power-driven boat, so we use that one as the only one we identify, and it's red over green, a sailing machine. Once again, we have that cadence, red over green, a sailing machine. And our second to last vessel is a power-driven vessel, and this is showing the lights for a power vessel less than 50 meters. We saw earlier that if a vessel is longer than 50 meters, it has two white masthead lights that need to be displayed. This is no mnemonic associated with this because this is just standard lighting for all vessels pretty much, and it's essentially the base lighting for underway vessels. I hope you remember that the last vessel on the pecking order is a seaplane in the water. I don't have a picture for that, and that is identified by a red blinking light at the top. That's actually a normal plane light as well, so it works not only both for the navigation rules but for regular planes. So if you see a red blinking light, it is most likely a seaplane in the water, and they need to avoid you. I hope you enjoyed this review of the navigation rules. Specifically, Rule 18 was the biggest thing that we covered. If you're interested in this in the future or would like to hear more information about the navigation rules and see more videos like this, I'd be very, very interested to hear you in the comments. Until then, I'm going to thank you again for viewing, commenting, liking, and subscribing. Until next week, bye.